Hello, what is up, fight fans? It's Will back once again for another fight card prediction. We're going to be breaking down UFC Fight Night 136 from Sao Paulo, Brazil, as Jimi Manuwa faces off against Thiago Santos in the main event. And overall, a pretty strong, solid card with some interesting matchups, some people moving divisions, some new people coming in. Some completely new people coming in from the Dana White Contender Series, Brazil format. So yeah, pretty solid looking card coming up this next one before UFC 229, Conor versus Khabib, which is going to be epic. Coming back to the last week, UFC Russia. When you look at it, pretty predictable kind of card. There was a lot of heavy-ass favourites. There was only a couple of dogs that came through the main event, which surprised me. Honestly, it really surprised me with Olenek. I started off the card pretty solid, 9-0, but there was a lot of heavy favourites. And then it kind of hit the meat of the card. Arlovsky lost a very bad fight. Krylov just lost to the better guy in the night. I've still got pretty high hopes for Nikita Krylov. And Olenek got another submission, so it is what it is. I got too confident and had a bad betting week for the simple fact I got too confident in Mark Hunt, and that ended up biting me in the ass. So we're moving on here. There's some spots I'm liking so far. I don't know if there's any odds out. So yeah, I'm waiting and see. I'm going to be hopefully a little bit more selective with this one. I thought had good looking bets last week, but ultimately just didn't play out. And hopefully this gets me back in gear this week, and I have some winning bets. As always, always get new subscribers. Welcome to my channel. Please contribute by leaving your comments down below, and I will get back to you as soon as I can. I really appreciate it. So let's keep it going. Thank you for the likes, and thank you for the critiques that some people had. I want to apologise for some reason I've got this brand new microphone I bought back in May, and it wasn't working last week. I'm looking at the exact same thing I was last week, and went back and watched it, and I was horrified by the sound of it. So I apologise. Hopefully this is a lot better, and you can maybe make out what I'm saying. I'm not the easiest to make out at the best of times. So yeah, thank you for that. As always, robbrownbetting.com does it once again. 19 for 21 on max bets this year. He did it again at UFC Russia. If you want to buy some of Rob's packages, just mention my name, mention Will. You will get 20% off any package, be it yearly, monthly, whatever it may be. He's killing it this year. His record stands for itself. He's just killing it this year. So if you haven't got the time to go look at picks or look at fights, I should say, and make your own mind and predictions, and looking for someone who puts in the work and ultimately gives you winning bets, robbrownbetting.com is the place to go. 20% off when you mention my name, Will. So go check that out if you have any inquiries. You can always, like I say, to people like DM me on Twitter and so on. I'm always there, open to chat. You can email me. My email, if you go in the about part of my channel, you will see my email there. You can always email me and talk fights or talk things that you want to know my opinion on. So yeah, looking forward to getting to this one here and seeing how it goes down. So we're going to get into it. Starting off in the women's strawweight division with the debut in Livia Renato Souza, the Brazilian gangster she calls herself, against Astrogal Alex Chambers. No idea why Alex Chambers is still sticking around. She is quite possibly the lowest of the. I don't want to be disrespectful in saying this, but I think she might be one of the. She's maybe just come into the sport a bit too late in her career. She's like knocking on 40 years old. Nothing really stands out. Like I said, I don't want to speak disrespectful of women and fighters in general, but she's not great, being honest. Just putting my opinion out there. I just don't think she's one of the strongest fighters we've ever seen in the UFC. Her record kind of indicates that, and she has been pretty much brought in here to lose to the newcomer, Livia Souza. I mean, she's lost all her fights except for the Kaylin Curran fight, where she was getting her ass beat pretty convincingly, and then Kaylin Curran, with really bad fight IQ, went into the guard of Alex Chambers and then got caught in a submission, and she had to tap out. So really, this is, I think, going to be a swan song in the UFC. It might even be her last fight in her career because she is older than a lot of girls, even outside the UFC. She's old, to say the least. Renato Souza, really interested to see her make the jump over at the UFC. If you watch Invicta fight FC, you will know who she was. She was the former champion over there. She came off a very slight loss to Angela Hill, which I actually favoured for Souza. Since then, she's beat Ayaka Hamasaki and Junesa Morandin very convincingly. She stopped Hamasaki, which is not the easiest thing to do. Vicious body kicks. She's just a really good fighter in kind of all aspects of the game. She's got triangles. I've picked against her once and picked for her once. I picked her against Deanna Bennett, and I picked her against Katja Kankampa, and I was made to look kind of foolish in that Kankampa fight because she caught her with a beautiful triangle choke and won the fight. For me here, she's going to be too aggressive, too good. Chambers just doesn't have anything, I don't think, that's really going to harm Olivia Souza here. I'd be very surprised. I would be super surprised if Alex Chambers made this close, being honest with you here. So I'm going to go Olivia Souza to finish this fight via a submission TKO. I think she gets a stoppage in probably round 2, maybe early round number 3. Once Chambers starts to kind of fade, Olivia Souza's going to eat her alive here, and she'll be one of my most confident picks, but I reckon our line's going to be super huge, probably like a similar line like we've seen in Russia last week. So Olivia Souza for the stoppage win there. Moving on, Zaleski dos Santos faces off against Luigi Vendramini here. This is a late replacement for Bilal Muhammad, who pulled out earlier on this week. Well, last week it is now because it's very early Monday morning over here in the UK. But I was thoroughly looking forward to that. I couldn't believe it was the second fight in the card. That, to me, deserved to be in the main card without a shadow of a doubt. Zaleski dos Santos is just an absolute brute of a guy to watch fight. He's in your face, chomping down on the mouthpiece and just coming forward, swinging bombs, and unloading with heavy, heavy power at every opportunity. So that's why the skill matchup with Bilal Muhammad was going to be very good, because Bilal is a technician with his striking, where you've got the brutality of Zaleski dos Santos. He is one of my favourite guys to watch. And he's riding a 5-fight win streak with some pretty impressive victims in there. Omari Akhmadov, he stopped. Keita Nakamura is very, very crafty. You have to be very careful against that guy. Lyman Good, he broke Lyman Good in that fight, where Lyman Good was back on his seat saying to his coaches, he was pretty much saying he was done, he was finished, he was quitting that fight. Went back out there, lost the fight regardless. Beat Max Griffin, who since then's come on, won a few fights in the UFC, and then he absolutely stopped Sean Strickland with a beautiful spinning wheel kick and followed up with some punches at UFC 224. And the guy is high in confidence right now, plants his feet, and is just there to hurt you. And he will do it, I think, against this young kid. When I heard about this, I went and found some of his fights. 7-0. Really, really young in his career. And when you see, I think the only fight he's ever won against a guy with a winning record was his last fight, who was 6-2. Before that, there was 0-5s and there was 0-2. This is a huge step up. Plus, he's a lightweight, moving up to 170 against a brute of a guy in Zaleski dos Santos. I'd be super surprised if Vendramini comes in here and does a hell of a lot against Zaleski dos Santos. But you always have to be careful with these kind of... It's like the Jinsu Sun fight last week. I didn't expect too much from him, and he gave Peter Yan some problems, gave him some uncomfortable situations. I ultimately lost the fight, but you can never take these guys lightly. But I think in this one, Zaleski's going to be too big, he's going to be too brutal, and he's going to unload, and he's going to catch him, and he's going to win via knockout and continue his very impressive streak of wins here and move on. And hopefully the Bilal fight can get put together, because I think it's a good fight that needs to be made. Maybe make it on later in the year, depending how this fight goes. So Zaleski dos Santos via knockout there. Moving on, we've got one of the guys who came out and says there's actually two guys on this card that have come out and said they're retiring after these fights. And we have a former Brazilian title challenger in Thales Leite is facing off against Hector Lombard in a fight I've been kind of flip-flopping on a little bit. Originally, I was kind of picking Hector Lombard. I'm always one of these guys when I hear like I'm retiring. I'm a little bit wary when I hear that the red flag comes out. I'm just like, and I was kind of like that here. And the more I looked into it, you realise that Hector Lombard really hasn't got a hell of a lot left, and I'm surprised he's still around. He's moved his training camp to All Stars over in Sweden. Don't know what that's going to do this late on in your career. But he's obviously a fighter who's very, very dangerous, very, very early on in the fight. And as his cardio depletes throughout the fight, he's easier to get at, he's easier to hit. Tally's latest, his second run in the UFC, which has been a good few years now. His striking is most definitely improved. I think he was looking his best around about the probably Michael Bisping fight in Glasgow, where ultimately I think he could have won that fight and could have put himself into a bigger showcase fight. But since then, he lost to Musasi, he lost to Jotko, and his 2 wins over Sam Alvey and Chris Camozzi, one via stoppage and one via very kind of boring decision. His last 2 fights, you can see that he's kind of slowed down a little bit. Tavares had too much for him. Jack Hermanson, it still baffles me, and I bet Jack Hermanson, I think, in that fight. It baffles me how he did not win that fight when Hermanson was clearly hurt. He was clearly in trouble. And somehow Jack Hermanson managed to still TKO him in the 3rd round there and get him out. Like I say, he's come out and stated this is his last fight, win or lose. I just think he has to be careful early on. And then it's hard because I very much doubt he's going to get Hector Lombard to the ground for the simple fact that Lombard from the waist down is stacked. He's got those judo hips, big tree trunks of legs, big thighs, and it's just hard to get down. Ultimately, I see this being close. I can see it really going either way. I'm going to go, since it's his last fight, a very kind of dirty split decision win for Tally's latees and that one there, and he rides off into the sunset with a UFC win, which would be nice, and probably the last fight we see Hector Lombard in the UFC, if I'm being honest. So yeah. Moving on, women's flyweight division with Mayra Bueno Silva against Gillian Robertson, a fight that got put together pretty much in 2 weeks' notice. And it's quite funny because Mayra Silva fought, I want to say 4 weeks ago on Dana White's Contender Series, the Brazil kind of section that I watched the fight for today or yesterday. And she got a very impressive finish, but she was against a girl who was 37, 38 years old and looked every bit of it. She looked old in there, and you could see very low level. Her opponent was very, very, very low level. She rushed in there for a takedown, and I was watching that, and Silva managed to sneak the ninja choke on, but her opponent, Kellen, she must have recognised that was going on and continued to just keep her head in there and not move out. It really shocked me to kind of see that like she didn't recognise that was happening, and then got caught in the choke and got put to sleep. And she got signed to the UFC and put in this card a month later, which probably just to fill up a bit of space. Went back and watched some of her fights outside the UFC, and she's not a great striker. She's decent in her submissions and so on, and a little bit of her grappling. I think she can get hit. I think she can leave her chin up a little bit there. I think she's got very flat footwork. She's susceptible to getting hit by a good counter puncher. Not saying that Gillian Robertson is a good counter puncher, but I think she has opportunities to get her on the feet. When I look at Gillian Robertson, I cashed her big time. One of my biggest betting regrets of 2018 is not betting more on Gillian Robertson. I think she was plus 260, either plus 235 or plus 260. I should have went back and looked at that. I was in Liverpool that week, and I was telling all the locals, like, your local girl is going to beat here. 100%. I was 100% confident she was going to get beat. And I cashed a really good underdog there. She's got a really decent ground game, and she's got a good passing game as well. She will look to get the fight to the mat at kind of pretty much every opportunity. And I think this is where this fight could be interesting, because I think both girls will kind of look for the same. For me, I think Gillian Robertson is just I think she's a better grappler. And I think she's a better wrestler. I think she can get the fight there. I think she can push the girl up against the cage and then get her down from there. I think from there, could be a little bit close, but I think Robertson looks for the submissions a lot sooner, and I think she's a really solid prospect coming through. and will be on a 3-fight win streak in the UFC and in that flyweight division. That's a big thing to have, and she'll get herself a bigger fight through that. Still very, very early on. You can see that she needs a lot of work, but you can see progression there. At UFC Liverpool, I managed to get to speak to our head coach, Din Thomas, who spoke very, very highly of her and her work ethic and her willingness to improve. And that just made me more confident in my bet. I know that it shouldn't mean that the bet's going to cash or she's going to win the fight, but she says she's in there every day, all day, improving. She's sparring with the good people, you and Jacek, Ansarov, Amanda Nunes, to say that, to name a few. And she's starting to kind of get more into those sparring aspects and get better at it. I know for the last month, even when she had accepted this fight, she was in Italy training and just broaden her horizons a little bit there. So, yeah, I'm going to go with Gillian Robertson here. I think she can catch her and win by submission. I think once Bueno realises that this girl's every bit as good, if not better, I think she could be in a bit of trouble here. I think that Robertson could finish her. So I'm going to pick Gillian Robertson to win via submission at end of round number 2. Moving on to the headline fight of the UFC Fight Pass prelims with the Panther Sergio Moraes against Killer B Ben Saunders in a matchup I'm really, really confident in Sergio Moraes here. I like him to win this fight. When I sat back and I was thinking about it, I was making some notes down. Just sometimes I do that. I would get a pen and paper, write some notes, and I'll write path to victories. And I was looking at Killer B and I was like, right, what is his path to victory here? And I was like, well, I think that Moraes is the harder hit on the feet. I think he's a little bit more technical. I think if it goes to the ground, Saunders is okay down there. He's good. He's got a good. He comes from the Eddie Bravo kind of 10th Planet Jiu-Jitsu game, and that's always tricky. And you have to be careful, especially him with his long limbs and so on. But ultimately, Sergio Moraes is a world champion Jiu-Jitsu practitioner who is. I just think he's the better guy down there, and he's got some. I mean, I think his record in the UFC is pretty decent. He's only lost I think he lost very early on to Cesar Ferreira. He came in there pretty short notice after the tough show kind of finished there. He lost to Kamaru Usman where he did get chin jacked and knocked out, and Kamaru Usman is not really known for that. But yeah, since then, wins over Neil Magny from his early goals. Omari Akhmedov, I think, is a good win. Luan Chagas, he went to a draw with. Davi Ramos, I think, is a good win. And then he beat Tim Means last time out, where I thought he was a little bit lucky, honestly, to get that decision. I think it could have went to Tim Means. I think I actually gave it to Tim Means. But when I look at Ben Saunders, he's coming off that win over Jake Ellenberger, where he caught him with some nice shots. But that's what you need to do against Jake Ellenberger. You have to pressure, hit him with everything you can throw, elbows, knees. I think he was a pretty sizable underdog as well in that fight, if I remember, which was a little bit surprising. I think I actually cashed him in that one as well. Need him to the body and then just stopped him with some punches. But like I say, the one thing that kind of I thought, right, if he gets him into the clinch, could he use those big knees up the middle to maybe hurt Moraes? And I just struggle to see that. I think when it comes to the striking, I think Moraes has the more power, and I think he has the more technique. I think he has leg kicks as well, which he can implement. And then if this fight hits the ground, I expect the sheer jiu-jitsu of Sergio Moraes to just be better than what Ben Saunders is on the ground. I think Saunders is very, very manageable on the floor, but I just think that Moraes is better. For me, I'm going to pick Sergio Moraes to win. I'm trying to think where he's going to win via stoppage. Sometimes he's a little bit lackadaisical in his strike, and he doesn't throw as much as he should, and he doesn't kind of implement a pace that he should. I'm going to go with the hometown boy here and Sergio Moraes to win via submission. Maybe late round number 1, early round number 2, but I've got him via stoppage in this one here, and he moves on. So I'm going to pick Sergio Moraes to win via submission. Right, I'll go round number 2. Moving on to the Fox Sports 2 prelim card, starting off in the heavyweight division with another one of Dana White's Contender Series Brazil guys, and Augusto Sakai against Chase Sherman. Now, I knew who Augusto Sakai was before he went on that show for the simple reason he used to fight in Bellator, fought a close fight with Czech Congo, think Daniel Gallimore, I think he fought 3 or 4 times in Bellator and had a decent run, to kind of say the least. And then he cropped back up on the Dana White show, like I mentioned before. And honestly, I'm a little bit surprised that the UFC signed him, for the simple reason that his opponent, Marcos Conrado, was 36 years old, was 212 to 215 pounds, was giving up 50 pounds of weight that we know of, probably even more than that. It might have been close to 70 odd pounds against Sakai, and was terrible. He was not a good fighter at all. What Sakai did well in that fight, he pressured well, hit him with some nice leg kicks, got him with a head kick a little bit as well, which kind of stunned him in the first round. But Conrado was just swinging back fists, spinning back fists everywhere, and he was running away and looking and nearly getting caught with head kicks, and was not a good fighter, just a terrible, terrible fighter. And ultimately got him down, grinded him out, and got the win there. When I look at Chase Sherman, it's a do-or-die kind of moment here. He got knocked out by Shamil Abdurakhimov, who's not known for knockouts, to say the least. But the one thing that always blights Chase Sherman, in my opinion, is just his striking defense, and his head is always there, and he's always willing to drop his hands and have his head wide open. Sakai could easily hit him with leg kicks that lowers the hands. That means he can come over the top and catch him with a big shot. Sakai, I think if he were to get him to the floor, I do think he could cause a lot of problems down there for Chase Sherman. I think Sherman's a little bit harder to get down there than maybe I think. So ultimately, I think that Sherman, I don't know, I'm kind of struggling with this one. I don't know what the odds are going to be on this fight. I feel that Sakai will be the favourite, I think, handily. I don't know where the line in that will be. I said he lost to Shamil last time. In fact, he lost to Shamil November last year, and then he lost to Justin Willis. I keep forgetting about that fight, even though I watched it. It wasn't a great fight. Yeah, I think possibly Chase Sherman's going to be a live underdog, but I'm just not sure. I think Sakai's well-rounded enough to, and especially fighting at home, I think that he can implement his game plan of peppering with leg kicks, and then once those hands start coming down a little bit more, he can start to strike up top and then find a way to get to the ground where I think he can blanket Chase Sherman a little bit and work his ground and pound, which is okay, to say the least. But Sherman, to his credit, he does have a pretty good output. We've seen that in the Grabowski and the Rashad Coulter fight. Took a lot of shots in that Coulter fight, to be honest with you as well. But when he has a good output and he can establish his jab, he usually looks fairly, not really fairly decent. He does enough, but the guys, that is only 2 wins. And when he's facing anybody better, Walt Harris has won a few fights in the UFC. Shamil's obviously won a few fights. Justin Willis is still kind of new, but he's won fights. I'm not overly confident in Sakai, but I think I'm going to pick him here. I think he will beat him via decision, and I think that might be the last time we actually see Chase Sherman in the UFC, and maybe see him in the PFL or something very, very soon. But I'm going to go Augusto Sakai via decision there. Moving on to the light heavyweight division with Luis Henrique against Ryan Spann, another guy who's coming in from the Dana White Contender Series, the kind of American version. Luis Henrique is making his drop down to 205 from heavyweight. I always thought he was a little bit blown up at heavyweight. I didn't think that was the division for him. And ultimately, he lost fights down up at heavyweight that determined that he had to move down to 205, and went and followed him on Instagram. And I think the guy looks good. I think he's fitted. His body is definitely fitted into 205, and I think that's going to help with his conditioning, his cardio, something which has shown to be waning in some of his fights in the past, especially the Tybura one, where because he implements a game plan of putting you against the cage and trying to hold you there, and that's a tasking game plan at any point to be doing something like that. Wins over Dmitry Smolikov, Christian Colombo, very low level guys. When you look at the people he's lost to, Arjun Bula was just a better grappler, better wrestler. Marcin Tybura, I think, is just the better overall fighter. And then Francis Ngannou, that was a pretty close fight. It was back and forward until he got hit with a howitzer of an uppercut that knocked him out. Was supposed to fight Tim Johnson, Mark Godby. I think I was really looking forward to that fight against Mark Godby. I thought it was a good fight for him. Moving on to Ryan Spann, like I say, he's a guy who had his second opportunity in Dana White's Contender Series and took advantage of it with a really nice knockout of Emiliano Sordi. Not a knockout, sorry, a submission of Emiliano Sordi. I was thinking of his loss, actually, in the Dana White show when he lost to Carl Robertson via elbows. That's what I was thinking about there. But lost that fight, went out there, beat Myron Dennis, I think, was on tough. Alex Nicholson, it's always good when you can beat that guy. The guy's a bit of a joker with some of his shenanigans outside the UFC. And then he beat Emiliano Sordi. Very dangerous in a lot of aspects, got really nice elbows, got some submissions there, he's got some nice guillotine jokes. So he has to, if Luis Enrique wants to work that game plan of putting you against the fence and working there, he has to be careful with his head positioning. He has to put his head in the chin and just like put it right into the shoulder and try and control him. I think if he can control Spann against the cage, I think he can work on getting takedowns and working from there. But I think he needs more output, and he might be able to do that at 205 a lot better than he could at heavyweight. For Ryan Spann, he's going to have to try and get those underhooks and turn it around and get it back into a striking battle, where I think he is the better striker. But we have seen him knocked out in the past as well. So it's just, even like Trevin Giles, he lost the split. Robert Drysdale, he got choked out back in Legacy. I remember watching that one. I'm pretty confident that Luis Enrique can come in here and win and just kind of shut down Ryan Spann a little bit. I think it's a tough fight for both guys, especially Ryan Spann coming in, going down to Brazil for the first time. Luis Enrique down at his new division. But I like what I'm seeing physique-wise, and I think his game can kind of spoil Ryan Spann. If Spann can't hit him early in that fight, I think he could lose a pretty kind of horrible-looking decision to Luis Enrique, and maybe even a stoppage late in round 3 for Henrique. I'm going to go Luis Enrique. I'm interested in this fight betting-wise, because I think I'd be interested to see if... I've got a funny feeling that Ryan Spann's going to be the underdog, to be the favourite, sorry. I think Luis Enrique's going to be the underdog, which I don't know whether it's justified, but I'm going to go Luis Enrique to win via decision there and hopefully going to establish himself in the UFC light heavyweight division. Moving on, Francisco Trinaldo against Evan Dunham. This is the other fighter here who's going to retire after this, in Evan Dunham, and he's going out with a very tough fight. Very tough fight. It's never easy going down to face Francisco Trinaldo in Brazil, especially, where he's got a great record, and the only guy to really go down there and beat him was Kevin Lee, and who else was there? There was somebody else. Was it Gleison Tibau as well? Back in, oh Christ, that was ages ago. That was UFC. I don't even know what that was, but it was a long time ago. I know he lost to Piotr Holman as well. But, I mean, he's beat some decent names. Paul Felder, Yancy Medeiros, Jim Miller, Charles Pries went over to Canada and knocked him out there. So, yeah, he's just... I call him the tough old bastard of that division. He is... I would hate to be a fighter and get the call to fight that guy, because you can't look good against him. I mean, he was given as good as he was winning that fight against Kevin Lee until he really started to fade a little bit, and Kevin Lee's striking took over, and then he got him with a beautiful rear naked choke. And he's just a tough guy to face. He's a tough guy to game plan for, because he's decent with his striking, and he's extremely dangerous, very heavy-handed as well. So you have to be careful coming in, because he can crack. He does fade as the fight goes on. But I'm a little bit interested in seeing what Evan Dunham's got here, because I'm always interested in people that are going to retire and claim they're going to retire, and then they actually go out there, because he's still, well, I was going to say young in the game. He's been around since 2010, maybe 2009 actually. 2009, 2010, 2011 in that time. So he's been around the UFC for a long time, and he's fought a lot of the good fighters in there, beat a couple of good fighters, lost to a lot of good fighters, but ultimately has gave us very, very exciting fights as well. On top of that, watched them a few times live myself, which was always pretty decent. I think that on the feet, I think that Trinaldo can really pressure him with his striking, maybe hit him with some body kicks, something that's always been a little bit open. At Cerrone hit him with a body kick, Barboza stopped him with a body kick, Olivier Aubameyang stopped him with a body kick last time out, pretty much. And I know he's a veteran of the UFC, but I'm like struggling to see. Maybe he comes on late in the fight if he can pressure Trinaldo and maybe win rounds through that, but I still struggle to see how he handles and can he take Trinaldo down and beat him on the ground with ground and pound and so on. I struggle to see it. So ultimately, I think I'm going to take Francisco Trinaldo to win via decision. I think it could be a very fun fight. I think it could be a little bit back and forth. But ultimately, I think the more harder, more vicious shots and the more impactful shots will come from Trinaldo. And he will go on to win the fight via decision there. So, yeah, I'm going to pick Francisco Trinaldo to win via decision there. Moving on to the main fight of the prelims here, we have Charles Oliveira against the returning Christos, the Spartan, Giagos, who, when I heard this fight was announced, I was really surprised that Giagos was getting an opportunity to come back to the UFC, because when you go out the UFC, you think you have to put a long reign of wins together to get yourself back into the big show. Now, we had 6 fights out since he left the UFC, and he went 4-2, which is not the greatest record, but when you back and watch the fights, actually, pretty much all of his fights were really fun, action-packed fights, and maybe that's what the UFC saw in him there. He went out and faced Josh Emmett, got knocked out in the 3rd round. That was a back-and-forth fight, really good fight. Won a couple of fights in RFA. Went over to ACB, had a really good fight with Pimentel, lost to a very close split decision to Nikaev, then beat Herderson Batista, and then he got the call back here, and I think it's a really tough test, especially back up at lightweight against Charles Oliveira, who I like watching fight. I've always liked watching Charles Oliveira fight. I think his striking looks good. I think, I want to know how old he is, actually. Is he late 20s? He's still only 28 years old. That's crazy. This kid has been around the UFC for the longest time. We all know what his game's all about. Vicious chokes, vicious submissions. Showing that if you can survive, you can ultimately break him, mentally break him. Paul Felder did that when I thought Paul Felder was playing with fire, and ultimately he went and got knocked out. Caught Clay Guida in a beautiful guillotine choke. But if this guy gets any opportunity to get his hands around your neck, you're in deep shit. And in the past, you've seen that Christos has given up Gilbert Burns. I think he gave up the arm there, and he gives you opportunities to get those off. And to be honest with you, he only really loses to really good fighters, does Oliveira. Pettis, Lamas, Felder's a good fighter, Max Holloway, Frank Yeager, Cub Swanson. The list goes on of the amount of guys. This guy, I want to see when he actually came into the UFC. Let me see. August 1st, 2010. Damn, he was in from 20 years of age. That's crazy. Yeah, I think on the feet that Giagos is definitely aggressive. He's there swinging. I think that Charles Oliveira is long, and he is a pretty decent counter striker when he wants to be, but ultimately he wants to get into grappling scenarios because he knows he's got the best of a lot of guys there. For me, I think he's going to catch Giagos in a submission here. I don't know whether it's going to be the first or the second, but I think that Christos is going to leave something lying out there, and I think Charles Oliveira will snap it up, and if not, snap it off and win via submission. So I'm going to pick Charles Oliveira to win via, I'll go first round submission, late first round submission there. Moving on to the main card here, and we are in the women's strawweight division with Randa Markos against Marina Rodriguez. Another one I've been going back and forward on. I've been just flip-flopping in this fight really badly. And I think I did my podcast with John and the MMA Huddle earlier on, and we talked about this one, and I'm kind of like, I picked Randa Markos pretty much in a 50-50 split. When you see Randa Markos' record, she's like 8-6 with win one, lose one. Literally, ever since she came into the UFC, she wins one, lose one, wins one, lose one. And in saying that, she's due to win one here because she lost last time out. Now, she has beat and had a couple of competitive fights with far better opposition than what Marina Rodriguez really is. She lost to Nina Anserov, like I said. She beat Juliana Lima, lost to Grasso, which she should have won. Beat Esparza, which I think she should have lost, and then she got armbarred by Courtney Casey, lost to Karolina Kovacevic in a decision there. So she's faced the far better opposition and really is battle won and tough at this point. And before I come on here, I thought, right, I'm going to change my pick to Marina Rodriguez. I don't think I am. I think I'm going to stick with my pick of Randa Markos. I think it's going to be close. When I look at Marina Rodriguez, she was on that the show, the Dana White Contender show, where she faced off a girl who I didn't think really should deserve to be in that opposition, deserve to be in that position, Maria Oliveira, where she lost the fight. So I don't understand why they gave her a girl coming off a loss there. And then ultimately she beat her in the first round due to strikes. You look at her record, 6-5, 7-4. So she's beaten okay girls. But when I go back and watch some of her fights in the UFC, she's decent all around. Nothing really stands out if I'm seeing anything there. Markos is tough. She's very hard to put away. And I think she's going to be forever in this fight if Rodriguez doesn't hurt her or land something or submit her. So ultimately, I'm going to go Randa Markos to win in Brazil via decision there. It's a tough one. I'm not confident it's going to my least confident picks, but I'm going to pick Randa Markos to win there. Moving on, bantamweight division, we have the former UFC kingpin and Renan Barao against the newcomer Andre Ewell. And when I saw this fight announced, I was like, wow, how far is Renan Barao really fell down the totem pole here? Really fell down. 4 years ago, he was the king of that division. Then TJ Dillashaw came in and pretty much just shattered Renan Barao's UFC existence, to say the least. His 2 wins since then have been Mitch Gagnon, don't know where that guy is, and Felipe Nova, who I believe is retired now, who's a nurse in Brooklyn. And he did not look good in those fights. I thought last time out against Brian Kelleher, I liked his output. I thought he had a really good... I thought his output looked really good, but ultimately the harder shots of Brian Kelleher matched up and started to kind of hurt Barao. Now, Barao, to me, has got a legendary chin. It takes a lot to put this guy down, and Kelleher hit him with some massive shots that ultimately just won him the fight. The grit, the determination of Brian Kelleher showed. And Renan Barao is just, I mean, he's lost to TJ. Jeremy Stevens beat him up where he took a lot of big shots. Aljamain Sterling completely outstruck him, by nearly double. He did get a couple of takedowns in that fight, and it's something that he looks for is takedowns, and I think it's something he could use here against Ewell. I'll be honest with you. He did it in the Gagnon fight. He did it in the Nova fight where he got 3 there. And I think that is something that he can use here, because when I watch Andre Ewell, he's a guy that gets put on his back fairly easily, and someone like Barao, I think, can do that here. Like in the Kelleher fight, I think he landed well over 110 to 15 strikes. But just the bigger, better, more impactful shots were coming from Brian Kelleher. His feet are so stuck in the mud sometimes that it's just so easy. And like as the fight goes on, the hands come down, so it's easy to ping a little bit easier. But this is a different opponent here. Andre Ewell, what does he bring to the UFC? I think he's actually a good addition. I'll be honest with you. I think he's not bad. He's beat some UFC vets in the past. Lost to Patrick Mix, is a guy I know from out in the regional circuit who might make his way to the UFC sometime soon. Love his nickname, Mr. Highlight. He's got some nice performances. I think he's got an extremely long jab, which he could use to his advantage here. I think that 75-inch reach is massive for that as well. They're looking on Fight Metric. He's not Fight Metric, just this website I'm looking at here. He's got a 75 inch reach there, which is going to be profound. I think he could use that later on if he sticks around. He uses his jab really well to kind of open up his left hand, which I think is his best weapon. But whether we can see that here is another thing. Good accuracy, good power, pretty consistent with it. He's quick and light at the end of his reach as well. So I just think the big thing that stood out to me is like he can definitely get taken down here, and I think that Renan Barao can take him down and use that to his advantage here. Like I say, takedown defense isn't great, but you don't really. I don't know. I'm struggling to see Renan Barao do that here. Now, Renan Barao's at American top team. He's got good sparring partners, and he looks in good shape and looks ready to go. Of course, the weight cut's always a worry with that guy going down to 135. Barao of 3-4 years ago would have starched a guy like this. Honestly, I don't mind people betting on Ewell. I think the line could be close. I wouldn't mind a bet on Renan Barao, actually. I don't know what the line is, but ultimately, I think that in Brazil, against the caliber opponent, I think Ewell's just not ready for a guy like Renan Barao yet. Now, it's not the Renan Barao we know, but I think he's definitely a danger. It's like people write people off far too early. They did it with Jose Aldo when he fought Jeremy Stevens, and I'm just not on the point yet where he's definitely not the fighter he once was, but he is. I just don't think he's all the way done yet, and he should win this fight. So I'm going to go Renan Barao. I might go for a late submission in this one here, if not a very kind of comprehensive decision. And ultimately, like I say, a guy I am maybe thinking about betting. I don't think he's all the way done yet. That's my personal opinion. So I'm going to pick Renan Barao for the win there. Light heavyweight division, we've got Little Nog coming back, Antonio Rogério Nogueira against Smiling Sam Alvey. And I was wondering where Little Nog was. It's been a while since we've seen him in there. He got knocked out pretty viciously by Ryan Bader in a pretty boring fight. And I thought he was done, but it's like he's back. This might be his last hurrah in the UFC here. As he is 40, I don't know, he must be in his early 40s. I can always remember Big Nog's age, but I can never remember Little Nog's age. Well, I should remember because they're twins. Sorry, that's a 20 to 2:40 a.m. kind of thing I'm saying here. My bad, they're twins here. So they're same age. They must be 41, 42, 43 in that region. So, yeah, apologies about that. That was a mental fart there, to say the least. Sam Alvey is just never good to look good against Sam Alvey because he's pretty much a bit of a spoiler fighter with big power, and if you rush at this guy, you get caught with big shots like Marcin Prachnil did last time out. He's got good takedown defense, I should say, coming from that Quest training center where he was with Dan Henderson for many years. I'm not sure where he is out and about now, whether he's still out there or what, but what Sam Alvey is, he comes forward, he's got that stupid look in his face where and he comes out there and he's just willing to kind of throw and trade, coming off that Prachnil win, obviously, and then beating Jan Vellante. He really only loses to like Amiv is a strong kind of Russian grappler. Never looked good in that fight. He missed weight. Came in, I think he was fighting on short notice there. Lost to Talis Leites, beat Rashad Evans in there. This should be a prime spot for Sam Alvey here. Should be. And I just don't feel confident in pricking Little Nog, who is obviously comes from that Brazilian boxing amateur background. But that was a long time ago, and he's been through a few wars before he came into the UFC. In the UFC, he's had some vicious knockouts. Like I mentioned, the Ryan Bader one. And then it's obviously Anthony Johnson knocked his block off. He had that loss to Shogun. Had a nice finish of Patrick Cummins, which was nice, but for me, I think I'd rather go with Sam Alvey with opportunity. I think that Nog's going to come forward. I think he's going to end up catching a shot on his chin and maybe taking a little bit of a nap. I'm trying to think here. Does he knock him out or does he win via decision? Because if the fight's close, they're going to give it to Nog. I've just got that feeling. I'll go Sam Alvey to win via TKO. I think that Nog, he might be. Oh, fuck. See, I'm struggling with this. I'm going to pick Sam Alvey to win the fight. Don't know what he wins by, but it's not going to be a confident pick. I'm going to go Sam Alvey, though. Co-main event of the night, we have Cowboy Alex Oliveira against Italy's own Carlo Pedersoli Jr., a guy I really like, I'm really impressed with. And he's getting a big step up here as he faces Alex Oliveira in the co-main event slot. We'll start with Pedersoli, a guy who kind of came on the radar this year. I knew about him a wee bit before he went into Cage Warriors. I always keep an eye out for the European guys coming through in the circuit, and he was a guy that kind of caught my eye a little bit. Beat Nicholas Dalby, a former UFC fighter, then came in against Brad Scott at UFC Liverpool and fought a very consummate fight. Used some nice takedowns, well-timed takedowns, outstruck Brad Scott. And Brad Scott, he's not your quintessential best fighter in the UFC, but he's tough and he's hard to put away. And since then, Brad Scott's actually been USADA caught him for something. So, yeah, Pedersoli, very, very technical striker. Really good leg kicks, really good counter striker as well. The one thing that worries me here, though, is the pressure that Alex Cowboy brings, because on the feet, I think that Pedersoli is definitely the better fighter and the more technical fighter, but I think that Cowboy's got that big looping power that you have to be careful with. He's very, very dangerous on the ground, and he's got a clinch game, which I think is really good. He's really interesting to watch with his grappling techniques, and is very, very strong, and that can go on through the fight. But he's also very dangerous in the feet, so you have to be careful. You have to mind your P's and Q's with someone like Pedersoli, with Oliveira, sorry. To me, I think that's how if he can handle the pressure and somehow keep his back off the cage and off the floor, he could be very well win this fight. I'm going to pick Alex Oliveira, but I wouldn't say he's a lock by any sense of the imagination. I think Pedersoli is going to fight him close here. When you look at the caliber opposition, obviously, you've got someone like Alex Oliveira who's fought your Cowboys. He's coming off a win over Carlos Condit, where he took him to the ground multiple times, passed, got a submission, got the submission there. Had a fight of the year contender with Yancy Medeiros, took a lot of shots, beat Ryan LaFleur convincingly, beat Tim Means the second time convincingly after not looking great in the first fight. Just a fight I like watching. To me, it's all about the pressure. If Carlo can stop the pressure, keep his back off the cage, keep his back off the mat, I think he can outstrike him and win via decision. I'm just not certain he can stop the pressure of Alex Oliveira yet. And I see Alex Oliveira winning via decision there. Moving on to the main event of the night, we have the poster boy, Jimi Manuwa, facing off against Thiago Santos. And yeah, really, really good fight. Love the fact that Manuwa, like the fact that he stayed on the card. I've heard a few rumblings saying he's not too enamored with making the flight over to Brazil, which is fair enough considering he's not facing the guy who was originally supposed to be fighting, Glover Teixeira. And he's got a bomber here in Thiago Santos, who fought about a month ago at UFC 228 where he beat Kevin Holland. I thought he had the opportunity to maybe get him out of there, took him down 3 or 4 times and looked very comfortable, obviously. Then stated he wanted to move up to 205, which I think is going to be good for him. 2 big power hitters here. Thiago throws bombs, leg kicks, body kicks, vicious punching, very, very quick, but can be knocked out. Dave Branch knocked this guy, so there is opportunities to beat this guy if you can get your strikes off. And someone like Jimi Manuwa has the ability to do that, in my opinion. I think that he kind of stalks you down a little bit, and he can hit you with some vicious shots. He's done that in the past. I always loved the Corey Anderson knockout. Is it the Corey Anderson? Yeah, the Corey Anderson and the Ovinson Prue knockout was always something I was I loved those knockouts. Manuwa's always a guy I like to watch fight. He's coming off a war against Jan Blachowicz, where he got put down a couple of times by Jan, and or maybe just the once actually. But it was a great fight, a really good fight. One that I went back and watched, obviously, with Jan last week, and just a good fight. But I think Manuwa, I don't think he's going to like the fact he has to fly all the way out there, and I have a feeling that Thiago Santos is going to hurt Jimi Manuwa and put him down. Like I say, we've seen both guys put down. When it comes to technical striking, I think that Jimmy is the more technical striker, but the more powerful, and I don't think he's a bad technical striker, and Thiago Santos is right there to catch Jimi Manuwa, and I think that's what he's going to do here. I feel more confident picking Thiago Santos. I know it's in short notice. I just think it's who lands the big shot first. That's what it is with these guys. if Thiago lands early, he puts Jimmy down. Jimmy, if he lands early, could put him down. So, yeah. I'm going to go with Thiago Santos. Battle of the Bombers here. I'm really actually looking forward to this main event. I think it's a good main event. I'm interested to see who's going to be the favourite, who's going to be the underdog. Thiago Santos kinda. I like Thiago. If his line's decent, it wouldn't surprise me by the fight time next week if I put a bet on Thiago Santos. Not sure because it could literally end with one shot, so I need to be very careful with that. But I'm going to pick Thiago Santos to win by a knockout in the first 2 rounds. I think this is going to be, for as long as it lasts, it's going to be a very, very fun fight. But ultimately, I feel better picking Thiago Santos to beat Jimi Manuwa there. So that's my predictions for UFC Fight Night 136 from Sao Paulo, Brazil. We're off for 2 weeks, but the next one's a big one. Conor McGregor, Khabib Nurmagomedov for the UFC Lightweight Championship, maybe the biggest fight the UFC's ever had. I'm so pumped for that fight card. October 6th cannot get here quick enough. As always, leave your comments in the drop-down box with your potential bets, with your picks for the card, any critiques you've got of my picks. If you don't agree with anything, just let me know. I'll get back to you as soon as I can. That's what I like doing. I like coming back and speaking with you guys and seeing where your head's at for the fight. That's what it's all about. It's just talking fights and seeing different opinions and seeing who's right and seeing who's wrong. So, as always, thank you for the support. Thank you for viewing. I'll be back in a couple of weeks. Keep your eye out for that. If not, subscribe, hit the wee bell at the top there, and you'll get notified when my videos are on YouTube and ready to be viewed. Get this video to 100 likes if you can. I'm sick of getting these close, 93, 94, 95. Those extra 5 or 6 would be great. Get into the hundreds. So thank you very much. Appreciate you viewing. Appreciate you watching. And enjoy UFC Sao Paulo when it comes around this upcoming weekend. Take care.